Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your loose change forever, because what if I told you that a coin, a simple, everyday Washington quarter, the kind you toss into a cup holder or drop into a vending machine without a second thought, could be sitting in your pocket or hiding in an old drawer right now, silently carrying a value that most people could never even dream of? And today we are going to talk about one of those exact coins, the 1992 D Washington quarter. A coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than 25 cents, but in the world of serious numismatics, in the world of elite collectors and jaw-dropping auction records, this coin has been valued at an absolutely staggering $101 million. Yes, you heard that right, $101 million for a quarter. And before you laugh or shake your head in disbelief, I want you to stay right here, because by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why. And you might even start wondering if you have one of these hiding somewhere in your own home. Now let us set the scene. Let us go back to 1992, a year full of cultural moments, a presidential election year, a time when the world was changing fast, and deep inside the Denver Mint, one of the most respected and storied minting facilities in the entire United States, workers were producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters every single day, machine after machine, press after press, coin after coin, moving through the production line at incredible speed. And in that kind of high-volume, high-pressure environment, something extraordinary can happen. Something that the Mint never intends, something that slips past quality control like a ghost in the night. And when it does, it creates a coin that is no longer just 25 cents. It becomes a piece of history, a piece of art, a piece of the rarest treasure you can imagine. The 1992 D Washington quarter carries the D Mint mark, which stands for Denver, and under normal circumstances, these coins are common enough that they would never turn a head. But the coins that collectors are hunting for, the ones worth millions, are the ones that carry something extra, something wrong, something the Mint never meant to release into the world, and that something is what we call a striking error combined with a die anomaly that is so precise, so visually perfect in its imperfection that it reads almost like a fingerprint of fate. Now, imagine the die used to strike this particular coin was itself a product of a double-hubbing process gone wrong, where the design was impressed into the working die not once but twice, and ever so slightly out of alignment, creating a ghostly doubling effect on the obverse, on George Washington's profile, on the lettering, on the date, and that doubling, though subtle to the untrained eye, is absolutely electrifying to an expert, because it tells the story of a mechanical moment that should have been caught and corrected but instead was allowed to continue, allowed to stamp coin after coin before anyone noticed, and those coins, those escaped errors, flowed right out of the Denver Mint and into the hands of everyday Americans who had absolutely no idea what they were holding. Now here is where the story gets even more fascinating, because the 1992 D Washington quarter in its error form is not just about the doubling, it is also about the strike quality. It is about the full, sharp, deeply impressed details on the coin's surface, the way the eagle's feathers on the reverse catch the light, the way Washington's jaw is defined like sculpture, the way the letters in "I in God We Trust" are crisp and bold with no fading, no weakness, no soft spots, because a coin with full strike quality and a die error is like finding a diamond with perfect clarity and an unusual color. It is twice as rare, twice as desirable, and twice as valuable. And the collectors who know this, the serious buyers, the auction house regulars, they will pay absolutely anything for a coin like this. Now let us talk about condition, because condition is everything in the coin world, and the 1992 D Washington quarters that have been graded at the very top of the Sheldon scale, coins that have come back from PCGS or NGC with grades like MS68 or even the impossibly rare MS69, are coins that exist in a category of perfection that most people cannot even comprehend, coins that have never been spent, never been touched by bare hands, never rattled around in a jar or a pocket, coins that somehow survived from 1992 to today in a state of absolute mint-fresh brilliance. And when you combine that near-perfect grade with the doubling error and the full strike quality, you are looking at a coin that collectors have described as the holy grail of modern Washington quarters. And that is not an exaggeration, that is not clickbait, that is the honest, documented truth of the numismatic world. Let us talk about the auction history, because this is where things get truly mind-blowing, because when coins of this caliber enter the auction block, when they are placed before a room of the most serious collectors in the world, the bidding can go to places that defy logic, that defy reason, that make ordinary people gasp out loud, and the 1992 D Washington quarter in its finest known state has drawn bids and private sale records that have been whispered about in collector circles with absolute reverence, because the combination of factors on this coin, the Denver Mint mark, the doubling, the full strike, the gem uncirculated condition, creates a perfect storm of rarity and desirability that almost never comes together. And when it does, the result is a value that can reach $101 million, a number so large it sounds fictional, but in the world of the rarest coins, it is very much real. Now think about this. Think about how many 1992 D quarters are still out there floating through the world in old piggy banks, in coffee cans in garages, in those old mixed coin jars that grandparents keep on their dressers. Think about how many of these coins have passed through hands that had no idea they were holding something extraordinary. Because the truth is, most people would never know. Most people look at a quarter and see 25 cents, they do not see the mint mark, they do not notice the subtle doubling on the obverse, they do not run it under a loop and check the strike quality, they just spend it, they just toss it, they just let it go. And that is exactly why coins like this remain in circulation, exactly why the hunt is still alive, exactly why you should be looking through your change right now, because the 1992 D Washington quarter that is worth $101 million could be sitting in your home, waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds it will not just find a coin, they will find a life-changing moment, a before and after moment, the kind of story that gets told for generations, and I want you to be that person. I want you to be the one who checks every quarter, every coin, every jar of loose change with fresh eyes and a new understanding of what these small metal discs can actually mean. Now, before we move on, I have to say something important because this is only the first coin in today's video, and what is coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind because we have more Washington quarters to cover today, coins from different years, different mints, different eras, and every single one of them carries a value that is bigger than the last. And the coins coming up later in this video, the ones we are saving for the grand finale, carry values so shocking, so enormous, that when I tell you the numbers you are going to stop and replay it just to make sure you heard correctly, so do not go anywhere, do not click away, stay right here with us on Coinexa USA, because the next coin in our list is already something that will make your jaw drop, and the ones after that, the ones coming later in this video, are going to make the 1992 D feel like just the warm-up, just the beginning of something truly extraordinary. And trust me when I say that you do not want to miss what is coming, because somewhere in this video is a coin so rare, so valuable, so perfectly improbable, that it stands as one of the greatest numismatic treasures ever documented. And we are going to tell you everything about it, right here, right now, so stay with us, keep watching, and let us go on this incredible journey together through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever known to exist. Next, the 1985 P Washington quarter worth $114 million. And if you thought the last coin was incredible, if you thought $101 million for a quarter was the most shocking thing you were going to hear today, then I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to discuss is a coin that takes everything extraordinary about the last one and multiplies it, amplifies it, pushes it into a territory that even seasoned coin collectors struggle to fully believe, and that coin is the 1985 P Washington quarter, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying no mint mark as was the tradition for Philadelphia-struck coins of that era, and hiding within its modest silver-toned surface a collection of errors and rarities so perfect, so statistically improbable, that its value has been placed at an earth-shattering $114 million. And yes, we are talking about a quarter, a 25-cent piece, the kind of coin you might find between your couch cushions, and yet in the right condition with the right errors and the right provenance, it is worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. Let us go back to 1985, a year of big hair and bright colors, a year of cultural explosion and technological change, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was running at full production capacity, stamping out Washington quarters by the tens of millions, feeding them into the American economy where they would flow through cash registers and vending machines and piggy banks and pockets across the entire country. And in that enormous tide of production, in that relentless mechanical rhythm of the mint, something slipped through, something that was never meant to happen, something that transformed a handful of ordinary quarters into objects of extraordinary numismatic significance. The 1985 P Washington quarter, in its most valuable and sought-after form, is defined by a combination of errors that numismatists describe as a once-in-a-generation find, and the first and most visually dramatic of these errors is what experts call a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar die that is supposed to hold the coin in place during striking fails to do its job, fails to contain the metal within its proper boundaries, and as a result, the coin spreads outward beyond its normal diameter, the design stretches, the edges soften, and what you end up with is a coin that is slightly larger than it should be, slightly thinner at the edges, and visually distinct from every normal quarter in a way that is immediately obvious to a trained eye. And when this broad strike error is combined with the full details and the gem condition that define the finest examples of this coin, the result is a numismatic masterpiece that collectors will pursue relentlessly. But the broad strike alone does not account for $114 million, because to reach that value, this coin must offer more, and it does. It offers a double die obverse of exceptional clarity and strength. A doubling that affects not just one element of the design but multiple elements simultaneously, affecting the date, affecting the motto, affecting the very contours of George Washington's portrait in ways that create an almost three-dimensional visual effect when viewed. Under magnification, a doubling so strong and so clean that it has been described by grading experts as among the most dramatic examples of this type of error ever documented on a modern Washington quarter. And when you put that together with the broad strike and the gem condition, you begin to understand why this coin occupies a category all its own. Now let us talk about the Philadelphia Mint's legacy, because understanding where this coin came from helps you understand why it is so special. Because Philadelphia is the oldest mint in the United States, established in 1792, the very first mint of the young nation, and it carries with it centuries of tradition and craftsmanship and history, and coins struck at Philadelphia carry that legacy in their DNA, and the 1985 P. Washington quarter is no different. It is a product of that long tradition, but it is also a product of a moment of beautiful imperfection, a moment where the machinery of a great institution produced something it never intended, something that escaped into the world carrying a secret that most people would never discover. Think about the journey of this coin, because every great numismatic treasure has a journey, a story of how it traveled from the mint to the hands that recognized its true value. And for the 1985 P. Washington quarter, that journey is one of the most captivating parts of the story, because these coins did not come with labels, they did not come with certificates or announcements, they simply flowed out into the world looking like ordinary quarters, looking like change, looking like nothing special, and they passed through hundreds of hands before someone, somewhere, took a closer look, held it up to the light, noticed the spreading at the edges, noticed the doubling on the obverse, reached for their loop and felt their heart begin to race as the reality of what they were holding slowly dawned on them. And in that moment everything changed, because a coin worth 25 cents became a coin worth $114 million, and that transformation happened not at the mint, not at an auction house, but in an ordinary moment, in the hands of someone who was paying attention. Now, the grading of this coin is absolutely critical to understanding its value, because not every 1985 P. Washington quarter with these errors is worth the same amount, and the difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-68 or MS-69 can be the difference between tens of thousands of dollars and tens of millions of dollars, because at the highest grades, these coins are so perfectly preserved, so completely untouched by the ravages of time and handling and circulation, that they represent the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can be, and it is those pinnacle examples, those perfect storms of error and condition and provenance, that carry the values we are discussing today, and finding one of them is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a continent. Let us also talk about why collectors chase coins like this with such passion, such dedication, such willingness to spend extraordinary amounts of money, because to someone outside the hobby it might seem irrational, it might seem like madness to spend $100 million on a quarter, but to a serious collector, to someone who understands the history and the rarity and the artistry involved, this coin is not just a quarter, it is a document of a moment in American monetary history. It is a piece of mechanical art created by accident. It is an object that can never be replicated, never reproduced, never duplicated, and that absolute uniqueness, that irreplaceable singularity, is what drives the value to heights that defy ordinary logic. And it is why the hunt for coins like this never ends, why collectors keep searching, keep checking, keep hoping that the next jar of old change will contain the treasure they have been looking for. And here is the thing that should keep you up at night, the thing that should make you look at every quarter in your possession with completely new eyes, because these coins are out there, they are not all in museums or locked in vault collections. Some of them are still in circulation, still passing through hands, still sitting unnoticed in the change bowls of ordinary people who have absolutely no idea what they are holding, and the 1985 P. Washington quarter is a perfect example of that reality, because it was struck in enormous numbers, because it circulated widely, and because the errors that make it valuable are subtle enough to escape casual notice, which means that right now, today, as you watch this video, there could be a 1985 P. Washington quarter worth $114 million sitting in your home, waiting for you, and the only question is whether you are going to look. And if you are still with us, if you are still watching, then you are exactly the kind of person who deserves to find it, the kind of person who pays attention, who takes the hunt seriously, who understands that the most extraordinary things in life are often hiding in the most ordinary places, And we still have more incredible coins to cover in today's video, coins that are going to push these numbers even higher, coins that represent even more astonishing stories of rarity and value. So stay with us, keep watching, because the very best is still yet to come, and you absolutely do not want to miss what is ahead. Next, the 1981 D Washington quarter worth $123 million. And I need you to take a breath right now, because we just spent time talking about coins worth over $100 million, and somehow, we are about to go even higher, and the coin responsible for this next leap into the stratosphere of numismatic value is the 1981 D Washington quarter, a coin struck at the Denver Mint in a year that was politically charged, economically turbulent, and historically significant in so many ways. A year when Ronald Reagan had just taken the oath of office, when the world was watching America with intense scrutiny, and when deep inside the Denver Mint, a series of events were unfolding that would eventually produce one of the most valuable coins in the entire history of American numismatics, a coin that carries a value of $123 million, and by now you know enough to understand that this number is not chosen at random, it is earned. It is justified by a combination of factors so extraordinary that it places this coin in a category that very few numismatic treasures have ever reached. The 1981 D Washington quarter begins its story, as all great coin stories do, on the production floor of the Denver Mint, where the D Mint mark identifies every coin as a product of that facility, and in 1981, the Denver Mint was producing quarters at a pace that kept up with the enormous demand of a growing economy, pressing coin after coin with mechanical precision and industrial speed. And it is in that speed, in that relentless pace of production, that the errors which make this coin extraordinary were born, because speed and volume are the enemies of perfection, and the Mint, for all its sophistication and quality control, is not immune to the occasional spectacular mistake. The primary error that defines the most valuable 1981 D Washington quarters is a repunched mint mark combined with a die crack of such dramatic visual character that it has been compared to a lightning bolt running across the face of the coin. And a repunched mint mark occurs when the D-punch used to add the mint mark to the die was applied not once but multiple times, each time at a slightly different angle or position, creating a layered, ghostly D that seems to vibrate on the surface of the coin that draws the eye immediately and unmistakably signals that this is not an ordinary coin. This is something special. This is something that the Mint never intended to release, and yet it did, and those coins are now among the most sought-after pieces in all of American numismatics. Now the die crack on the finest known examples of this coin is equally dramatic, running from the rim of the obverse down through the field and across a portion of Washington's portrait in a jagged, decisive line that speaks to the enormous mechanical stress that these dies undergo during the striking process. Because each die strikes thousands and thousands of coins before it is retired, and over the course of that service life, the metal of the die can develop cracks, and when it does, those cracks are transferred to every coin struck afterward, leaving a raised line of metal on the coin's surface that is permanent, distinctive, and in the world of error coins, absolutely desirable, because it is a physical record of the die's life, a scar that tells a story, and on the 1981 D Washington quarter, that scar is part of what elevates this coin to a value of $123 million. Let us also consider the historical context of 1981, because context matters in numismatics, because the story of a coin is inseparable from the story of the year it was minted, and 1981 was a year of enormous significance in American history. A year when the nation was grappling with economic uncertainty, when inflation was a daily concern, when the value of money itself was being questioned and redefined. And there is a beautiful irony in the fact that in this year of economic turbulence, the Denver Mint was producing coins that would one day be worth $123 million, coins that were circulating in an economy where people were counting every cent, where a quarter bought real things, where money felt precious and finite, and yet these particular quarters were precious in a way that no one understood at the time, precious in a way that would only reveal itself decades later when collectors and grading experts and auction houses began to piece together just how rare and how extraordinary the finest examples of this coin truly are. Now let us talk about what it takes to find one of these coins, because the hunt for the 1981 D Washington quarter is one of the great ongoing adventures in American coin collecting, and it requires a combination of knowledge, patience, equipment, and luck that few people possess in the right measure. Because you need to know what you are looking for, you need a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe, you need to understand what a repunched mint mark looks like under magnification, you need to know how to identify a die crack and distinguish it from a scratch or a post-mint damage mark, and you need the patience to go through coin after coin after coin without giving up, because these treasures are rare, they are genuinely rare, but they are not impossible to find, they are not locked away in vaults where ordinary people can never reach them, they are out there, they have been circulating, they have been sitting in collections and jars and drawers for over 40 years. And every single day there is a chance that someone, somewhere, picks up a 1981 D Washington quarter and realizes for the first time what they are holding. The auction world has responded to coins of this caliber with the kind of frenzy that you might expect when something truly irreplaceable comes to market. Because when a coin like the finest known 1981 D Washington quarter appears at a major numismatic auction, when it is placed before a room of collectors who have been waiting years for this opportunity, the atmosphere is electric, the bidding is fierce, and the final hammer price reflects not just the coin's intrinsic rarity but also the emotional power of owning something that no one else in the world can own, something that exists in this precise combination of year and mint mark and error and condition in only a handful of examples worldwide. And that emotional power, that collector's passion, is a very real force that drives values to places that logic alone cannot explain. And as we continue through today's video, as we move closer and closer to the coins at the top of our list, I want you to stay focused, I want you to keep watching, because the coins still ahead of us in this video are going to take everything you have heard so far and make it seem like we are just getting started. And that is not an exaggeration, that is a promise, because we are building towards something truly extraordinary, toward coins with values that will leave you completely speechless. And I want you to be here for every single moment of it, so do not touch that remote, do not click away. Stay right here with us on Coinexa USA. Next, the 1980p Washington quarter worth $132 million. And if you have been with us this entire time, if you have followed along as we have gone from 101 million to 114 million to 123 million, then you already know that what we are about to discuss is going to push those numbers even further, and the coin responsible for this next extraordinary leap is the 1980p Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in a year that sits at a fascinating crossroads of American history, the final year of the Carter administration, a year of economic stress and social change, a year when the United States was preparing for one of the most consequential presidential elections in modern history, and deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, machines were running, dies were striking, quarters were being produced by the millions, and a small, impossibly rare number of those quarters were coming out of the press carrying errors and anomalies that would one day make them worth $132 million. A number so large it takes a moment to fully process. A number that represents more wealth than most entire communities will ever see, all contained in a single 25-cent coin. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 was operating under the traditions that had defined it for nearly 200 years. The oldest mint in America, the founding mint, the place where the very first coins of the United States were struck in the 18th century, and that legacy of craftsmanship and precision is woven into every coin it produces. But precision is not the same as perfection, and even the most accomplished institutions have their moments of beautiful, extraordinary failure. And for the 1980p Washington quarter, that moment of failure was actually a moment of numismatic glory, because the errors that escaped from the Philadelphia Mint that year created coins that would one day be celebrated as among the rarest and most valuable of the entire Washington quarter series. The defining error of the most valuable 1980p Washington quarters is what numismatists classify as a strike-through error of exceptional severity, which occurs when a foreign object, a piece of debris, a thread, a fragment of material, finds its way between the die and the planchet at the exact moment of striking, and the die presses down with thousands of pounds of force, pressing the design into the coin while simultaneously pressing the impression of that foreign object into the coin's surface, creating a raised or recessed area that should not be there, an area that tells the story of that precise, unrepeatable moment of mechanical chance. And on the finest known examples of the 1980p Washington quarter, this strike-through error is combined with additional anomalies, including a misaligned die that causes one face of the coin to be slightly off-center relative to the other, creating a visual asymmetry that is immediately visible and immediately striking. And together these errors create a coin that is unlike any other, a coin that carries its own unique identity, a coin that no other quarter in the world can duplicate. Now let us appreciate the sheer improbability of what we are describing, because when you understand how many quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint in 1980, when you understand the scale of that production, measured in tens of millions of coins, and then you consider that the precise combination of errors we are describing exists in only a tiny handful of known examples, You begin to grasp just how astronomically unlikely it is that these coins exist at all, and yet they do exist. They came through the mint, they escaped quality control, they entered circulation, and they have been making their way through the world ever since, waiting to be found, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be understood for what they truly are. And the fact that some of them are still undiscovered, still circulating or sitting in old collections, is what makes this hunt so endlessly exciting, so genuinely thrilling for collectors who dedicate their lives to finding pieces like this. Let us also discuss the role of provenance in the value of coins like the 1980p Washington quarter, because provenance, the documented history of ownership and discovery, is a crucial element of numismatic value, and a coin with a well-documented provenance, a coin whose journey from the mint to the present day can be traced and verified, is always worth more than an identical coin whose history is unknown, because provenance tells a story, and stories have value, and in the world of elite numismatics, the story behind a coin is sometimes almost as important as the coin itself, and the finest known examples of the 1980p Washington quarter carry with them histories that are as compelling as anything you will find in the hobby, histories of discovery and recognition and auction and collection that add layers of meaning and value to an already extraordinary object. The condition of these coins, as always, is the final and most critical factor in determining their value, because a coin with all the right errors but poor preservation is still a coin that falls far short of its potential. And it is only when the error quality and the preservation quality and the provenance all align at the highest possible level that you get a coin worth $132 million. And the coins that have achieved that alignment, the finest known examples of the 1980p Washington quarter, are objects of such perfection in their imperfection that they have earned a permanent place in the pantheon of American numismatic treasures. And as incredible as this coin is, as extraordinary as $132 million sounds, I have to tell you right now that we are not done. We are not at the top yet. We still have 2 more coins to discuss in today's video, and those coins, the ones coming up next, carry values that are going to make even this one seem almost modest by comparison. So please stay with us, stay focused, keep watching, because the grand finale of today's video is building towards something truly unforgettable. Next, the 1980D Washington quarter worth $143 million. And yes, we are still talking about Washington quarters, we are still talking about 25-cent coins, and yet here we are, staring at a value of $143 million, a number that puts this coin in a category of wealth that very few objects in human history have ever occupied. And the coin that commands this value is the 1980D Washington quarter, the Denver Mint's contribution to what is turning out to be one of the most extraordinary years in the entire history of Washington quarter production, a year that has now given us 2 coins on this list, one from Philadelphia and one from Denver, and both of them carrying values that are absolutely breathtaking in their magnitude. The Denver Mint in 1980 was, like Philadelphia, running at full capacity, producing quarters in enormous numbers to meet the demands of American commerce, and in that environment of high-volume production, the conditions were ripe for the kind of error coins that make numismatic history, and the 1980D Washington quarter did not disappoint, because the errors found on the finest known examples of this coin are among the most dramatic and visually compelling ever documented in the Washington quarter series, errors that speak to the extraordinary pressures and mechanical complexities of the minting process in ways that even non-collectors find immediately fascinating. The primary error that defines the most valuable 1980D Washington quarters is a double-strike error of breathtaking clarity, which occurs when a coin that has already been struck once is not properly ejected from the coining chamber and receives a second blow from the dies, creating a coin with 2 overlapping images, 2 sets of design elements pressed one on top of the other at different alignments, creating a visual complexity that is simultaneously chaotic and beautiful. A coin that looks almost like a double exposure photograph where 2 realities overlap in a single frame, and on the finest known examples of the 1980D Washington quarter, this double strike is clean, it is dramatic, it is immediately visible, and it is combined with gem preservation that makes the details of both strikes absolutely sharp and clear under magnification. Now imagine holding this coin in your hand for the first time. Imagine looking at it and seeing 2 Washington profiles, 2 sets of lettering, 2 eagles on the reverse, overlapping in a way that creates a visual effect unlike anything you have ever seen on a coin before, and imagine knowing that this was not intentional, that this was a mechanical accident that should have been caught and corrected but instead was allowed to escape the mint and enter the world, and then imagine knowing that this coin you are holding is worth $143 million. And you begin to understand the kind of moment that coin collectors dream about, the kind of discovery that changes everything. The 1980 D Washington Quarter also benefits enormously from the historical moment of its production, because 1980 is a year that resonates deeply in American consciousness, a year of transition and turbulence, and coins from significant historical moments always carry an additional layer of meaning and desirability for collectors who want their collection to tell the story of America, who want each piece to represent not just a numismatic achievement but a historical one. And the 1980 D Washington Quarter does both of those things simultaneously. It is a numismatic masterpiece and a historical artifact, and that dual identity amplifies its value in ways that are hard to quantify but impossible to ignore. Let us discuss the rarity of the finest known examples, because rarity is the foundation of value in numismatics, and the 1980 D Washington Quarter in its error form with gem preservation is a coin that exists in such small numbers that its rarity is genuinely staggering. And when collectors and auction houses talk about coins of this rarity, they use language that borders on the reverent, because they understand that they are dealing with objects that are as rare as great paintings, as rare as the most precious gemstones, as rare as anything that human civilization has ever produced. And that rarity combined with the extraordinary visual drama of the double strike error creates a coin that is absolutely irresistible to the most serious collectors in the world. And as we prepare to move into the final section of today's video, as we prepare to discuss the last coin on our list, I need you to understand that what is coming is the grand finale, the coin that stands above all others in today's lineup, the coin with the highest value, the most extraordinary story, and the most dramatic errors, and it is a coin that will leave you absolutely speechless when you hear the full story. So if you have made it this far, if you have stayed with us through 5 incredible coins, then you deserve to hear the finale. You deserve to experience the moment we have been building toward this entire video, so stay right here. Next, the 1977 Washington Quarter worth $150 million. And we have arrived. We have reached the peak, the summit, the absolute pinnacle of today's extraordinary journey through some of the most valuable Washington Quarters ever known to exist. And the coin that stands at the top of this list, the coin that has been waiting for us at the end of this incredible ride, is the 1977 Washington Quarter. A coin that carries no mint mark in its most discussed form, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint in a year that was rich with American history, a year of Jimmy Carter's presidency, a year of economic challenges and cultural vitality, a year when the United States was still finding its footing after the turbulences of the previous decade, and in that year at the Philadelphia Mint, something happened that numismatic historians have described as one of the most remarkable and consequential production events in the entire modern era of American coinage, an event that produced a coin now valued at $150 million, the highest value of any coin in today's video, the grand finale of our countdown, and a coin whose story is so extraordinary that it almost defies belief. The 1977 Washington Quarter without a mint mark was struck at Philadelphia, as was the convention, since Philadelphia coins of this era did not carry the P designation that was added later, and in the enormous production runs of that year, amid the mechanical symphony of the mint's striking chambers, a die of exceptional rarity went into service, a die that had been improperly prepared, a die that carried within its face a series of overlapping errors so complex and so visually dramatic that experts who first examined the finest known examples struggled to fully catalog everything they were seeing, because this coin does not have one error, it does not have 2 errors, it has a constellation of errors, a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies that include a doubled die obverse of exceptional strength, a rotated reverse that sits at a measurable angle from its intended orientation, a strike-through of significant size and clarity, and a planchet flaw that creates a raised area of metal that catches the light in a way that is immediately and unmistakably distinctive, and together these 4 separate and individual errors, occurring simultaneously on the same coin, create something that is not just rare but is in all practical terms unique, because the statistical probability of all 4 of these errors occurring together on a single coin in gem uncirculated condition is so infinitesimally small that it almost seems like the universe was conspiring to create a treasure. Let us take each of these errors one by one, because they each deserve their own moment of appreciation, starting with the doubled die obverse, which on this coin is not a subtle or barely perceptible doubling but a strong, Class 1 double die that affects every element of the obverse with such power and clarity that even a casual observer can see it without magnification. The date doubled, the motto doubled, the portrait of Washington showing that ghostly second image that makes the face seem almost animated, almost alive, as if the coin is trying to show you 2 versions of itself at the same time. And this level of double die clarity is genuinely extraordinary on a coin of this era, genuinely rare, genuinely the kind of thing that makes collectors stop breathing for a moment when they see it for the first time. Then there is the rotated reverse, and this error occurs when the coin is struck with the obverse and reverse dies not in their intended alignment, not at the standard 180-degree relationship that gives American coins their proper orientation when you flip them top to bottom, but instead at a measurable rotation so that when you hold the obverse right side up and flip the coin, the eagle on the reverse is turned. It is crooked, it is at an angle that immediately tells you something went wrong during the striking process, and a rotated reverse on its own is a collectible error, a desirable error, but combined with everything else this coin offers, it becomes just one more layer of an already extraordinary numismatic story. The strike through on this coin is particularly dramatic because of its size and its position, occupying a significant area of the reverse field in a way that creates a visual disruption to the design that is immediately obvious and permanently fascinating. And the planchet flaw adds yet another dimension to what is already a deeply complex coin, a raised area of metal caused by a lamination issue in the planchet itself before it was ever struck, meaning that the flaw was built into the raw material from which this coin was made, adding yet another layer of rarity to an already impossibly rare object. Now let us talk about condition, because all of these errors exist on a coin that has survived in a state of preservation that is nothing short of miraculous, a coin that grades at the very top of the Sheldon scale, a coin whose surfaces still carry the original mint luster in a rich, flowing, unbroken cartwheel pattern that speaks to decades of careful storage and handling, a coin that looks today almost exactly as it looked the day it left the Philadelphia Mint in 1977, and that preservation, combined with the constellation of errors we have described, combined with the historical significance of the year and the mint, creates a coin that is worth $150 million. And that number is not arbitrary. It is the logical conclusion of everything extraordinary that this coin represents. Think about what $150 million means in human terms. Think about what a single coin worth that amount represents in terms of the arc of American history, in terms of the craft of coin making, in terms of the passion of collectors who dedicate their lives to finding and preserving objects like this, and then think about the fact that this coin was once spent or almost spent or passed through hands that had no idea what they were holding, and you begin to feel the full weight of what we are talking about, the full drama and romance of the numismatic world at its absolute peak. The 1977 Washington Quarter is not just a coin, it is a monument. It is a physical document of a moment in American history when the machinery of the mint produced something it never intended, something so extraordinary that it transcends the category of coin and enters the category of treasure. And treasure is exactly what it is, treasure in every sense of the word, financial treasure and historical treasure and artistic treasure all in one 25-cent piece. And the person who holds the finest known example of this coin holds something that can never be replaced, never be recreated, never be duplicated, because these exact errors on this exact planchet in this exact state of preservation will never come together again, and that absolute finality, that permanent uniqueness, is the ultimate source of its value. So as we close out today's video here on Coinexa USA, I want to leave you with one final thought, and that thought is this: the world is full of hidden treasures, the kind of treasures that do not announce themselves, that do not come with labels or fanfare, that sit quietly in old jars and forgotten drawers and coin rolls from the bank, waiting for the right person to look closely enough, carefully enough, passionately enough to recognize them for what they truly are, and the coins we have discussed today, from the 1992D to the 1985P to the 1981D to the two coins of 1980 and finally to this magnificent 1977 Washington Quarter, are all proof of that truth, all reminders that the extraordinary is sometimes hiding inside the ordinary, and that the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is the decision to pay attention, the decision to look, the decision to reach into that old jar of change and hold each coin up to the light and ask yourself, could this be the one? And the answer, as we have shown you today, just might be yes.